Welcome, everybody. Looks like you're ready for another exciting topic. We have a real special one tonight. Tonight's topic is, when will Christ return? This is a question that people have been asking themselves for 2,000 years. 2,000 years ago, Jesus said he would return, that he would come back. And 2,000 years have come and gone, and we have not seen the second coming of Christ. Tonight we're going to talk about when he's coming. And actually we have some exciting news. And what we're going to announce is that actually you and I, living in this 20th century, we are a part of the generation that will experience the second coming of Christ. When is he coming? The answer is soon, now, today. Jesus spoke very clearly about what the world would be like at the second coming. He said there are signs of the times that you should look for. And we want to examine these things. One thing Jesus said, that many will come in my name at that time. Many false Christs will come. At last count, I think there were over 400 people claiming that they are the Messiah. Jesus said many things that are taking place actually today. Another thing he said, you shall hear of wars and rumors of war. If you just pick up your daily newspaper, certainly we can see that that prophecy is being fulfilled today. There's been more wars in this 20th century than any other time in history. We've seen the first world war in human history in the early part of the 20th century, and then we had the Second World War just 40 years ago. We've seen two great wars, world wars, where nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, as Jesus prophesied. We could also say that today we're in the throes of the Third World War. We see the rise of communism and the battle of communism and the free world. Really, the Cold War is like the Third World War taking place today. Jesus said also that there would be famines and diseases and earthquakes in diverse places. Probably more than any other time in human history, people are starving today. World famine is such a major world crisis, more than any other time in history. And also we've seen in this 20th century the rise of all sorts of unusual and unknown diseases. For instance, I'm sure we're all aware of the rise of cancer in the 20th century. And just recently, I remember reading about the rise of venereal diseases, herpes simplex 2, and all sorts of social diseases that they have no known cure for, running rampant throughout our society. These sort of diseases on the rise. On the news, you hear all the time about some sort of new disease that has no cure. And people are becoming concerned and alarmed about these sort of things. 2,000 years ago, Jesus prophesied that these things would happen as a sign of the end time, as a sign, as a signal of the second coming of Christ. We've seen earthquakes and volcanoes. You know, there have been more earthquakes in the last 20 years. All of a sudden, so many earthquakes everywhere. It's really a sign that Jesus prophesied. Another thing that he said that has only taken place in this 20th century. He said, when the gospel of the kingdom is preached in every nation, then the end will come. Do you realize that that has not happened in all of 2,000 years of history since Christ until this 20th century? So from the standpoint of biblical prophecy, we can say that, yes, this is the time. The 20th century must be that generation that will see Christ. And isn't it an amazing time in history, the 20th century? These past 84 years, man has experienced more progress. We would have to say progress with quotation marks. We've experienced more progress than all of history before these last 84 years. Can you imagine somebody who was born at the turn of the century? That person has seen more invention, more new discoveries, more breakthroughs in technology and knowledge than any other time in human history. Than actually all of human history before this 20th century. Incredible. You know, there's one statistic that's really amazing. 99% of all scientists that have ever lived are living today. Now that doesn't mean that there's a bunch of real old scientists hanging around. But it means there's been just a sudden increase of knowledge and technology. Well, the Bible talked about that as a sign of the end times, that there would be an increase in knowledge and many would run to and fro. Our ability to travel and to communicate is incredible. You know, a couple hundred years ago, to take a trip was a life-risking proposition. To go to another continent was such a rare experience. But today, you can go out to the airport, hop on a plane, and you can go to Europe in just a few hours. Or you can pick up your telephone, and within a few seconds, you can talk to somebody on the other side of the world. Why do you think we've seen this sudden development in this 20th century? It's very clear. Because Christ is coming in this age, and he's coming for all mankind, all the nations of the world. He's coming for all people. So we're living at a very exciting time when we should see the return of Christ. And actually, you know, if we look at history, we can see something else that's very exciting and surprising. Now, we're going to go through 4,000 years of human history in about 5 or 10 minutes. I wish we could have done that in high school. But they made you study it the whole year. Well, we don't have time to explain every detail in this comparison, but I think we can just catch a few things that really say a lot. What we're looking at here is the 2,000 years that led up to the coming of Jesus. And then we're going to compare that with the 2,000 years after Jesus that culminates in this 20th century. And what we're going to see is the 2,000 years before Jesus, there were 6 major periods. And also we see that in the 2,000 years from Jesus until today, there are also 6 major periods. And also, interestingly enough, each one of these periods is the same length of time. Same length of time. 400, 400, 400, 400, 120, 120, 400, 400, 210, 210, 400, 400 years. These are years. 6 major periods of the same length. Well, that's interesting, but even more, what's taking place in each of these periods is virtually the same thing. Now, for instance, the history of Israel from Joseph and the 12 sons of Jacob. The history of the nation, the development of the nation begins in slavery in Egypt. Persecution, repression. The history of Christianity begins in the same way. Suffering, persecution, and repression. Here in Egypt, here in Rome. The history of Israel moves out of the age of suffering and persecution. Moses leads the people into the promised land. And for approximately a 400-year period, we see a period of feudalism, where the people are living in the promised land, but there's no real central government or central unity. It's a feudalistic society of many leaders called judges. Same thing in Christian history. A 400-year period after the persecution in Rome. The Roman Empire disappears after converting to Christianity, and Christianity advances out of Rome and settles in Europe, and for a 400-year period also exists on a feudalistic level. No real central unity, no real united Christian world. And so what we see is divided leaders called patriarchs, church patriarchs. And actually, if you study their function, it was virtually the same as the judges in Israel's history. In the history of Israel, we move out of feudalism into a monarchic society, the United Kingdom. Samuel crowns Saul king, and we begin a 120-year period of a monarchic society, a kingdom, a united kingdom. Same thing in Christian history, a 120-year period called the United Christian Kingdom. That's very interesting because this time the Pope, Leo, crowns Charlemagne king. So amazing parallels here. This lasts both 120 years. At the end of this period of 120 years, then we have a 400-year period of division. The nation was divided into northern tribes and southern tribes. 10 northern tribes and 2 southern tribes. And this lasted for 400 years. After the United Christian Kingdom, also another parallel here, this United Kingdom was divided into a series of 3 leaders: Saul, David, and Solomon. Same thing. Charlemagne, his sons, and his grandsons. And the result here and here was division. This kingdom divided into East and West Franks, and also lasted for a period of 400 years. At the end of this period, we see a 210-year period of exile, the Jewish captivity, the Babylonian captivity. And in Christian history, we have a 200-year period of symbolic captivity and exile. This time, rather than the whole body being taken, the leader of the church was held in captivity. The Pope was taken and arrested and held in captivity for a period of 70 years. And totally a 210-year period of confusion, no clear tradition or standard. And the authority of the church really declined, and the people became confused. At the end of this period, there was the same thing, confusion. The traditions were not clear because they had been held in captivity for over 200 years. So what did God do? He sent a prophet. He sent a prophet, and that was Malachi. Malachi came, and if you study Malachi, Malachi is referred to as a reformer. He's bringing reformation. He's reestablishing the basic traditions of the covenant. And they rebuild the temple. He judges the iniquities that had creeped into the traditions, and he refocused them on the very core of their religious belief, the coming of the Messiah. At the end of this period in Christian history, what great reformer came? Another one came, Martin Luther. And Martin Luther virtually does the same thing as Malachi does. He's a reformer. He simplifies, clarifies the tradition, and he refocuses Christians on the ideal of their religious faith, the coming of Christ. Christ is coming again. This begins a 400-year period of preparation for the coming of the Messiah. All sorts of amazing things took place during this 400 years. But one of the most important things was the rise of the Roman Empire. The rise of the Roman Empire. And then we see the coming of Jesus. And in this 400-year period, one of the amazing things that we have seen is the rise of the free world and democracy, centering on the United States. And it's really interesting because people have done a study of comparing the American culture, the culture of America, and its links to the Roman culture. There are amazing kind of parallels. For instance, our love of sports. We have the same symbol. The symbol of Rome was the eagle. The symbol of the United States is the eagle. So actually we can say then that the coming of Martin Luther in 1517 is the date that he nailed the 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg, Germany. The coming of Martin Luther then should signify the 400-year period of preparation for the second coming of Christ. So let's add this up. If we add up 400, 400, 120, 400, 210, and 400, we come up with 1930. If we add 1517 as the beginning of this 400-year period preparation, add 400, then we come up with 1917. Somewhere between 1917 and 1930, Christ should appear. So what are we saying? We're not saying Christ is coming. We're saying he's already here. And if he's here, then we have to ask ourselves the next important question. And that is, how does he come? One thing is for sure, if he's here and he's on earth, then there's one more parallel. And that is the life of the Lord of Second Coming with the life of Jesus. Jesus came to a nation that was expecting him to come in a very cataclysmic way. Coming on the clouds. Daniel 7:13. They were expecting Jesus to come in a very cataclysmic way. They were expecting the Messiah to come to their nation, exalt them, and send all their enemies into hell. Today, it is a very common expectation that the second coming of Christ will be in the clouds, and even we use the same Bible verse, Daniel 7:13, to suggest that Christ is coming in the clouds. And we're expecting Christ, the same thing. He's just going to come for us, Christians, going to exalt us and send everybody else into hell. We can see an amazing parallel there. So this means we have to be awake. We have to be aware. We have to be ready for Christ to come in a way that is maybe doesn't conform to the doctrines of our day. We have to be ready. We have to be prayerful. We are living at a very important time in human history. Let us pray. Let us watch and wait. Let us really ask God to guide us as we hear this important message. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Here are the highlights from Reverend McCarthy's lecture on the consummation of human history. First, the prophecy concerning the return of Jesus is fulfilled in the 20th century. Second, the rise of technology is an indicator of Christ's imminent return. Third, historical analysis indicates that Christ should return between 1917 and 1930.